the decision that haunts the presidency to this day. Some decisions never fade. They don't end with a signature or a speech. They linger, quietly shaping every leader who follows, every crisis that echoes the original choice. This is one of those decisions, a moment so consequential that the presidency has never fully escaped its shadow. It did not announce itself as historic, and that is precisely why its influence has endured. The absence of spectacle allowed it to sink deeper into the structure of power, where it could operate without constant scrutiny. At the time, it didn't feel historic. It felt urgent, necessary, framed as a response to extraordinary circumstances that demanded speed over reflection. The president believed the nation could not afford hesitation. That delay would cost lives, stability, or survival itself. The atmosphere was thick with pressure, and every option carried the weight of irreversible consequence. In that environment, restraint felt dangerous, and decisiveness felt synonymous with responsibility. To understand why this decision still haunts the presidency, we have to return to the moment it was made. The country was under pressure, political pressure, public pressure, global pressure. Information was incomplete. Fear traveled faster than facts. Expectations for leadership were absolute, and patience was in short supply. The public wanted assurance, not ambiguity. Institutions wanted direction, not debate. Advisors presented options, each worse than the last. Do nothing and risk catastrophe. Act decisively and risk overreach. Every path forward carried consequences that could not be fully measured in the moment. But one option promised immediate control, a way to project strength, restore order, and reassure the public that someone was in charge. It offered clarity in a moment defined by uncertainty. That option was chosen. At first, the outcome appeared successful. The crisis stabilized. Approval rose. The system held. From the outside, it looked like proof that decisive leadership works. That bold action, even controversial action, can protect a nation in its most fragile moments. Relief spread quickly, reinforcing the belief that the right call had been made under impossible circumstances. But beneath the surface, something else had changed. A line had been crossed, not violently, not dramatically, but deliberately. A precedent was set that could not be undone. Future presidents would inherit not just the authority of the office, but the memory of this decision, the knowledge that when pressure peaks, certain limits can be moved. That knowledge does not disappear when the crisis ends. It becomes part of the institutional landscape. No one talked about that part publicly. The focus stayed on results, on relief, on survival. Celebrating stability felt safer than questioning the cost of achieving it. The narrative hardened quickly. The decision had worked, therefore it had been justified. Yet history has a way of revisiting moments like this, not to ask whether the decision worked, but to ask what it made possible afterward. And that question has followed the presidency ever since. In the days following the decision, the nation exhaled. The immediate threat appeared contained. Institutions resumed their rhythm. Markets steadied. Public anxiety softened just enough to feel manageable. The sense of danger receded, and with it, the urgency to examine what had been done. From the outside, it looked like leadership had prevailed. Inside the presidency, however, a different reality set in. The decision had solved the urgent problem, but it had also unlocked something new. Authority had been exercised in a way that redefined its own boundaries, not through force, but through interpretation. The rules had not been shattered. They had been stretched, and that distinction mattered. Legal justifications were assembled after the fact. Advisors worked to anchor the decision within existing frameworks, stretching language where necessary, not to deceive, but to stabilize, to ensure that what had been done could stand without unraveling everything around it. The system adapted quickly, absorbing the expansion as if it had always been there. This is how power adapts. First in response to fear, then in response to itself. The administration avoided revisiting the decision publicly. Reopening the debate risked exposing fragility. It risked raising questions that had no clean answers. So the narrative remained fixed. It had been necessary, effective, and finished. But internally, the precedent lingered. Future scenarios were quietly tested against it. Emergency plans reference it indirectly. New interpretations of authority began with the same unspoken assumption that when pressure is extreme, expansion is acceptable. The decision became a silent reference point, shaping choices without ever being named. And with each quiet reference, the decision grew heavier. What made this moment uniquely dangerous wasn't the action itself. It was the absence of correction. No rollback, no redefinition of limits, no clear signal that the expansion was temporary. Without that signal, the system had no reason to resist repeating the logic. The presidency moved forward carrying more power than before. And while that power remained dormant most days, its existence alone changed the balance. Power does not need to be used to be influential. It only needs to be available. Because once something is possible, it is no longer unthinkable. Years passed, and the decision quietly outlived the crisis that created it. New presidents entered office. New emergencies arose. Different personalities, different politics, but the same shadow remained. The context changed, but the memory did not. When pressure mounted, advisors no longer asked whether the line could be crossed. They asked when. The language of exception became familiar. Temporary measures blurred into standing options. What was once unthinkable became part of the strategic landscape, ready to be invoked when circumstances demanded it. This is how a single decision reshapes an institution, not by repeating itself exactly, but by lowering resistance. Each future choice feels easier, more justified, less extraordinary than the last. The emotional barrier erodes faster than the legal one. Some presidents resisted the temptation. Others leaned into it. Each time the precedent was invoked, even indirectly, the presidency moved further from its original limits. Authority expanded not through law, but through memory, through what had already been done once and survived. Public debate lagged behind reality. Citizens argued over personalities, parties, scandals. Meanwhile, the structure of power evolved quietly, largely unnoticed. The office itself changed faster than the conversation around it, creating a widening gap between perception and practice. And this is the cruel irony. The decision was made to protect the nation, to preserve stability, to prevent chaos. But by normalizing expansion under pressure, it planted the seeds for future instability. Moments when the wrong leader, facing the wrong crisis, might reach for the same tools without the same restraint. History doesn't fear strong leadership. It fears unexamined precedent. Because once the standard shifts, every future decision carries more weight and less resistance. Each choice builds on the last, whether leaders acknowledge it or not. The haunting part isn't what was done. It's what became possible afterward. By the time the full weight of the decision was understood, it was no longer reversible. The presidency had absorbed it. The system had adjusted around it. And the nation had moved on, unaware of how much had quietly changed. No apology followed. No correction. No formal effort to redraw the line that had been crossed. Not because leaders were hiding guilt, but because undoing the precedent would require admitting how fragile the moment truly was. And fragility is something power avoids acknowledging. Instead, the decision became institutional memory, a quiet reference point, a reminder of what could be done when pressure demanded it. Over time, it stopped feeling dangerous. It started feeling available. This is why the decision still haunts the presidency today. Not as a scandal, not as a mistake, but as a template, a proof of concept that authority can stretch further than originally intended and still be accepted. Each new crisis now carries an invisible question. Should we go that far again? And if we don't, will we be blamed for what follows? That is the burden this moment left behind. Because leadership isn't just about solving the crisis in front of you. It's about the rules you leave for the next person standing in the same place, under even greater pressure. The decision solved the immediate danger, but it never truly ended. It became part of the presidency itself. So, what do you think? When pressure rises again, will the line be held or crossed even faster next time? The